Hello everyone, today I will recap you a TV series titled Grimm, Season 3, so make some tea and we'll start. Monroe, Juliet and Rosalie are trying to find Nick, but the zombies are getting bigger and bigger. They get into the car and try to get rid of them. Meanwhile, Nick discovers Baron Samedi standing on the container, who is a Cracher-Mortel. They are about to have a fight. After that, Cracher-Mortel opens the hatch, and Nick throws him there. Inside the container, Nick finds a coffin, and in it fake documents. Because all this was planned in advance by Prince Eric Renard, Cracher-Mortel attacks and turns Nick into a zombie. Sean Renard arrived at the scene. He catches Eric, and also notices how the coffin is being carried into the car, saying that he will be on the plane soon. Nick's team arranges a zombie race, but soon gets into an accident and tries to survive by climbing a hill. Juliet calls Hank and says they won't be able to cope for a long time, and hangs up. Hank gathers reinforcements, and they go to Lombard Street. Sean explained the situation by saying that Nick was kidnapped by his brother and wants to take him out of the country, picks up the guys and goes to the airport. Rosalie explains that Nick will react differently to the poison because he is a Grimm. Frank calls the post and asks to delay the van and prevent the plane from taking off. The officers ask for documents for verification, after which they receive poison from Cracher-Mortel in the face. When Nick's team arrives at the airport, the plane has already taken off, and they are already powerless in the air and will not be able to intercept it. Juliet slaps the captain, saying that his family is responsible for this, and threatening demands that he be returned. Frank gets a call from Wu, and he tells him to collect and lock up all the infected in one container. Meanwhile, Juliet, Monroe and Rosalie go to the spice shop to prepare more medicine. Meanwhile, the gypsy takes out the heart of the witch Frau Pesch, who helped Adaland and told her that the child is of royal blood. After that, the gypsy calls Adaland, gives her a dagger and says that if you want to regain the power of a witch, you need to know what the witch felt, what she saw, what she touched. That is, to cut off her arms, legs and tear out her eyes. After much agony, bones and skin, the blade was greatly blunted, but Adaland managed to cope. Then they go for a walk in the forest. The girl is given a pickaxe and told to dig. She begins to object and asks how many more checks there will be. In response, she hears from the gypsy that they are not checking on her. Baron Samedi is flying in an airplane, smoking a cigar, rejoicing that their goal has been achieved. And then, to his surprise, the coffin begins to move. He can't believe that Nick woke up ahead of time. He spits at Nick again, wishing him a good night. The poison doesn't work, and Nick attacks. The Baron tries to control Nick, but nothing comes out. He is out of control, hits him in the face, and the plane crashes. Monroe, Rosalie, and Juliet come up with a plan to save Nick and are ready to follow him to Australia, like many others whom Nick saved. And at this moment, Rosalie comes up with the idea that you can inject drugs through the lungs, but not smoke, but breathe. Later we see footage after the plane crash. A dead Cracher-Mortel, one of the crew members, and Nick, who is under the influence of poison. He gets out from under the wreckage and runs away from the forest. The guys approach the warehouse, where Wu has already hidden all the infected in one of the containers. Monroe explains that the medicine is in the form of gas in a bottle. He distracts them with the sound of a baton. And Rosalie and Juliet throw a bottle of gas into the container and close the door. After a while, the sounds subsided. They open the container. The antidote worked. Hank is informed that Nick's plane crashed. He tells everyone about it and goes to the crash site. Nick, walking through the woods, finds a bar. Everyone is looking at him as if he can't pour any more. The biker approaches him and tells him to move away, shoving him, after which he receives a response from Nick, as a result of which a one-against-all fight begins. The biker regains consciousness, raises a knife in an attempt to attack Nick, but everything is empty. The captain is informed that there was a fight in the bar. Nick attacks an armed bartender, who begs for mercy, gives up the barrel and runs away. Monroe and Rosalie come to the bar and say that Nick's smell has changed and you need to be careful, but our Grimm has already managed to escape. Adaland, digging a hole, takes a bucket with the witch's body parts and puts them inside, and puts a box with a heart on top, buries it all with his own hands. After a short time, all the flowers begin to fade quickly, and the witch's spirit breaks out of the grave and inhabits Adaland. This means that she has been accepted, and now she needs to collect all the faded flowers. Monroe is trying to find Nick by smell, but he has already managed to get closer to the city where the civilians are. This is the end of the first series. In the next episode, Nick discovers a family trying to open the door to the house. Seeing that Nick is running towards them, they start to quickly open the door, drop the keys and manage to close it at the last moment. But the closed door is not a hindrance to him. He knocks it out with his hand, and the family tries to hide in the house and find a gun. Locked in one of the rooms, the father hides the family in the closet and tries to get a gun out of the safe. Hearing the screams, Hank and Monroe come running. A fight begins. Monroe and Hank can't cope with Nick. They realize that he needs to be taken to a safe place. Hank throws the statue at his head, but Grimm deftly intercepts it thanks to his well-developed hearing. This provokes him, and a chase begins. Hank and Monroe try to split up because he is chasing his work partner, but Monroe breaks the vase and the roles change. Having come up with a plan, they lure Nick into the barn. But I can't talk to him. Grimm falls under the old wooden floor, unconscious, and the guys quickly close him there. Nick regains consciousness and is released. Monroe and Renard transform because otherwise they won't be able to keep Nick. But they still can't cope. Then Juliet runs up and injects a syringe with medicine into the man's stomach. They took him to the spice shop, but in the car he became very pale. The pulse has started to slow down, and Juliet is covering him with her jacket and trying to talk to him. Meanwhile, in Austria, Adalind and Stefania return back to Frau Pesch's body. The gypsy tells Adalind to put rotten flowers in Frau Pesch's body and sew them up. The girl sews a hole in the body, tears the thread with her teeth, and begins the ritual. In his office, Renater receives a press report about the death of Eric Renard. Wu enters the office and reports that one person was killed after a fight in a bar. There are no recordings from the cameras and there are no suspects either. After that, the captain decides to view the recording with the help of the video camera cassettes that he took and hid earlier. Nick takes a second dose of medication. All we have to do is wait and hope it helps. The man begins to show signs of life, and handcuffs are put on him. Juliet takes care of Nick, heals his wounds. When he regains consciousness, he does not understand what is happening, why he is handcuffed, and his body is all in wounds. All he remembers is fake documents, a coffin, and that's it. Nick blames himself for everything, but he doesn't know about the murder he committed yet. Wu also informs Hank about the murder, and he wonders where Nick is. He says he got it too, and he wakes up at home. The captain's plan is to proceed cautiously. The police saw them at the bar with Rosalie and Juliet. They will be questioned by other detectives, and Nick needs to be covered up. At the spice shop, everyone finds out about the murder, with the exception of Nick, who stayed at home. Everyone understands that he was out of his mind, but he won't be able to explain it in court. Renard says they suspect a certain Thomas Chirac, explains the plan of action, alibis, and small details that they often stumble upon during interrogation. At the station, detectives come to Sean to question him about the murder, and he sends them to two girls, Rosalie and Juliet. At night, Nick turned very pale. His pulse disappeared. In other words, he became cold as a corpse. Juliet tries to revive him, beats him, but as soon as she calls 911, Nick's skin color returns to normal, and he wakes up as if nothing had happened. He is confused by the girl's anxiety and convinces her that everything is fine. Adalind is woken up by a gypsy and says that it's time to reap what has been sown. She has to fill the jar with the red paste that the flowers in Frau Pesch's body have turned into. Taking off her clothes, Adalind takes out the contents of the jar and rubs it into her stomach, after which the skull appears there and then dissolves. Detectives have already come to the spice shop to question Rosalie about last night when she was with Captain Sean. She says that she is a pharmacist and that they are trying to prevent the spread of neurotoxins. She also says that she has heard about Thomas Chirac, who started a fight, but she has never seen him. After that, the detectives visited Juliet, but Nick opened the door, so he found out about the murder. During the interrogation, Juliet told the same story as Rosalie. Nick is angry because he wasn't told the truth and that now everyone is lying for him. He calls himself a murderer and goes to the police station. Frank stops him and tells him he shouldn't confess, because he tried to kill them all. The captain shows footage of Nick being attacked by a man with a knife, but in the end he dies in the hospital. Sean says that justice is not obvious, because his brother is to blame for everything that is happening, and if he goes to prison, the enemies will get what they wanted.